Welcome to Holley Terminator X training part 19. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at working with our acceleration enrichment feature in our Terminator X software. The acceleration enrichment is going to be used to characterize a momentary burst of airflow as we have throttle changes coming into our engine. So our main fuel table is going to properly characterize the steady state airflow at idle, part throttle cruise conditions, and wide open throttle. But when we have our transient events, when we're actually giving it throttle inputs, we have to have something else that's going to be adding fuel on top of our main fuel table. And that's where the acceleration enrichment is going to come into play. We have various tables that can correct based on throttle rate change and our map pressure change, or the load change from our map sensor. We're going to have a lot to cover here in order to understand this. Let's jump into our video so we can check this out. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at working with our acceleration enrichment tuning feature in our Holley Terminator X system. Our acceleration enrichment allows us to add additional fuel above and beyond our main fuel table to properly characterize the rates of change in our throttle movement. So if we're driving around and we're operating at idle, let's say part throttle, so cruising situations, or wide open throttle, our throttle position or the throttle movement is going to be relatively fixed. If we're not moving our throttle plate, we'll find that we have a fixed or a regulated amount of airflow that's entering the engine. Our main fuel table here can properly characterize that. So at idle, if we're looking at this range of area in our table, we're going to be finding that our throttle is going to be shut and we'll have a regulated amount of airflow coming in. In our cruising area of operation here, so coming off idle here all the way out to the high RPM, from roughly 70 kPa and below, that's where we spend the majority of our time doing normal cruising type driving, we'll find that our throttle inputs are going to be relatively small. We are going to be moving our throttle, but not a drastic amount, not having a throttle swing from, let's say, 5% throttle to 80% throttle and coming back down again. We'll find that we might move our throttle maybe a couple percent as we're driving and operating at a steady state condition with our engine and our vehicle. In that situation, again, we have a relatively fixed amount of airflow coming into our engine. So we can properly characterize this with the values in our fuel table. When we go into full throttle area of operation, it's going to be the higher load into our table. This is going to be when we're at very high throttle angles, usually from 80 to 100% throttle, and the amount of airflow that's coming into the engine is going to be relatively fixed. So again, the main fuel table here can properly characterize the steady state airflow as it's entering the engine. We're going to get into the situation where as we're driving, we give rapid throttle movements, whether it's going to be doing a downshift or going from part throttle into wide open throttle and coming back off the throttle again. Any of these situations will induce a huge burst of airflow that the main table here cannot properly characterize. In that situation, we're going to find that we have a lean misfire or lean stumble. The car is going to have really poor drivability. We'll find in steady state conditions, when we're nice and steady on the throttle and we're not having any kind of rapid throttle movements, the car will drive great. We're going to hit a decent air fuel. Everything's going to be falling in line and it'll operate nice and smooth. But it will be in these transient type of conditions, again, where we have our throttle moving, where we have these bursts of airflow entering the engine. The table here cannot properly characterize the fuel delivery. And that's where we need to have our acceleration enrichment come into play. The acceleration enrichment is going to be adding fuel above and beyond what's calculated here from our main fuel table for an injector pulse width to deliver the fuel that we need. So again, steady state conditions, fixed throttle, fixed amount of airflow, idle, cruise, wide open throttle. The fuel table here will allow us to nail down our air fuel delivery and nail down the fuel delivery to the engine. But when we start to have these throttle inputs, especially for downshifting or going in and having a rapid throttle change, that's where the acceleration enrichment is going to be critical. It's going to come into play. Now we have that out of the way, let's talk about our acceleration enrichment tables here and what we're going to be doing and working with them and tuning them. I do want to point out here before we jump out of our main table here, this is going to be a speed density fuel flow rate model. We've talked about this. We've also talked about our volumetric efficiency. Whether we're going to be in a speed density style strategy or in a volumetric efficiency style fuel strategy, the table again will only be able to characterize steady state airflow, where it's assuming steady state airflow kind of conditions, and that any kind of throttle inputs needs to have this acceleration enrichment to add fuel above and beyond what the table is already characterizing from that steady state airflow. All right, so let's go here in our fuel tab. We're going to jump down into acceleration enrichment. This is where we start to unlock all the tables that are going to be for the acceleration enrichment feature. We're going to find that we have two different sets of acceleration enrichment we're going to be working with at the same time. We're going to have a TPS version and a map version. Now, as we're starting to give throttle input, we'll find that we have a rate of change in throttle depending on how quickly or how much we open our throttle. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.